Everybody online, can you hear us?
Yep, can you hear us?
Yeah, it's always good to check because you never know with the technology. Okay, hopefully we have got everybody that that we need is on.
Yep.
So this is the February 2025 tab, and we're here to talk about 8676 Georgia. We will do a quick run through of just who's here. For the usual, let's just have the staff members say that they're here, and then the applicant team, and then staff, and we'll always do people in the room and then people on the call. Go ahead.
David Grunrath, staff. Good morning.
Good morning. Let us know you're here.
Wait, Alice, you start.
Oh, I can go ahead and start. Sorry, I wasn't sure. Alice Enns here and calling in. I'm
Josh
stuck down in
Kasperger
Raleigh. I'm sorry
here.
I couldn't be there.
And Praj is there, and Joy, are you there?
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Chow Joy. Sorry I can't be in person either.
Okay, applicant team, just quick roll call in the room.
I'm Ronnie Ali with Monster Harrison Architect.
Daniel Seidman with Monster Harrison Architects.
Stacy Silver with Lurch Early.
Brian Corcoran with Roadside.
Paul Kaminsky with Roadside.
Will Eichler with Roadside.
And online applicant members.
Brian Bolin with Parker Rodriguez.
Michael Catelli with Monster Hair Sign.
Sarah Grant with the Wilkes Company.
There's a tour online.
Oh, Andy Adams and Trini.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Hey,
Good
Trini.
morning, everyone.
Great.
And then planning. So, anybody else? And then in the room, Amatara Margulies and Down County Planner and the coordinator of the staff.
Elza Heisel McCoy, Chief Down County Planning.
Paul Mortensen, Senior Urban Designer, the Director's Office here.
Dan Brugert with Historic Preservation.
Adabasi from the Down County Planning.
And I think there's two staff members online. Atul
Atul Sharma with the Director's Office. Good to see you all.
and Stephanie.
Stephanie Dickel, Regulatory Supervisor, Down County.
Okay, and with that, go ahead. Yeah. And we're gonna get this done today.
Great. Well, thank you guys for coming. We appreciate you being here in person. We did bring samples to share that show materials. We appreciate that this has been culled down to kind of 2 points, which we're going to be focusing on. And similarly, looking forward to moving to the next step with our hearing on March 27th. So with that.
All right, yeah, so it'll be a relatively quick presentation today because we're just talking about the George Avenue facade and the garage facade behind the Tasty Diner. Next slide. So this is just a site plan to orient everyone. Next slide. First floor plan. Next slide. So we're going to start on the Georgia Avenue facade. So this is an elevation at Georgia Avenue, and we cut a section at the base showing that we're at the base, we'll have the metal and window facade hitting a stone base, and we brought a sample of the stone and a sample of the metal. And that stone base is gonna wrap around the whole base of the building all the way to Ramsey. Next slide. So here's a elevation on Cameron Street. So you can see the grade is a little higher here. This is where the entrance to the retail is on that second bay. And our stone base is going to run along there. And as the grade goes down, the window line will stay the same, but the stone base will get taller. So this is scheme A. So this is the same scheme we presented last time on the George Avenue facade with the three-part grid coming down to the ground. And the difference in the view here is that we modeled the Verizon building next to George Avenue, or 8676 George Avenue, to show there's a difference in material and plane of the Verizon building, and it really shows how narrow the facade of our building is on George Avenue. And with that plane change, we believe that this 3-part grid acts as a corner to this block, Georgia and Cameron. Next slide. So here you can see the plane change between the Verizon building and our building, which is due to the property lines, and how our setback of our building makes that makes the whole face of that building a corner because it's so narrow. And also, last time we talked about the corner treatment and between showing lights and showing clear glass. So we are going to show clear glass, and we're showing scheme C, which we had last week here, but it's still between scheme B and C with the angular lights or the straight lights. So this is just, but for the Georgia Avenue facade, we're just going to show scheme C for these examples. So next slide. So here's at night. Next slide. So we did a straight on view during the day to show what this facade looks like next to the Verizon building and with activation inside. So you can do the next slide. So that's where people will be inside with a 20-foot high ceiling and at the retail. So you can see through on George Avenue. Next slide. So this is a view from the other side on George Avenue. And then scheme B, we brought the brick that you can see on Cameron Street over to the Georgia Avenue facade and have it floating above the first floor, just as we do on the Cameron facade. So it breaks at the corner, so the corner comes through to the ground. Go to the next slide. So here you can see the brick. It's the same brick with the same articulation with the frames into the parking garage facade above, and the brick aligns with the top of the Verizon building. So there's a continuation of a masonry material there. Next slide. See the night view. Next. So here you can see the elevation on George Avenue brick, how it aligns with the Verizon building, and go to the next slide. And here you can see it at night and how you can see through the clear glass all along George Avenue here. All right, so I think that is it with the George Avenue scheme, just those two. And then with the diner garage color, so we still believe that the darker bronze material is the right choice here. And we've modeled the context buildings next year to show what it looks like against those browns of the buildings around it. And we think that the darker bronze contrasts with the diner, and it matches all of the rest of the trim and metal for the rest of the building. And yeah, and also we've lightened the wood soffit in these views so that as a pedestrian, it won't feel like a heavy mass above you. There's a light wood that's going to be the underside. Slide. So you can see as you're walking down the Cameron Street that the light reflects off of the metal, and the soffit is a lighter wood material. Next slide. So this is the view from Ramsey, and you can see the darker bronze matches the rest of the metal on the building, and it still appears lighter because of the reflection than the concrete building across the street. Next slide. This is the view from further down on Cameron Street, sort of the view from coming from the courthouse. And you can see all the metal sort of harmonizes on the building, and we just have 3 colors for the whole building: the bronze metal, the brick, and the lighter metal on the west tower here. Next slide. So we explored looking at a lighter color for the metal as requested. And you can see it lightens it up. It has less of a contrast with the diner and the stainless steel. Go next slide. From the underside, it looks pretty similar. Next slide. And then from on Ramsey, you can sort of see the metal is different than the metal on the masonry piece. And then if you zoom out to the whole building, lightening up that metal sort of makes it stand out and create, and that's the only place where we're going to be using that lighter metal. This is the ninth. Yep, so that's it. Last slide. So
this metal is just one shade lighter than the rest.
yeah, and we brought samples.
Yeah.
Or a sample, that metal and the one we're going to be using.
Oh, we get the sample with the soffit.
Yeah.
Do you all who's here, anybody do you want us to pass these around? Do you want to walk, look at it?
Could you just tell us what the names of the samples are? Like the color names and the material, like what's on the back of the sample?
For the stone, it's we're gonna go for the absolute black. The one.
Yeah, I saw that in the package. Mhm. And then the metal?
Yeah, so metal is Alucobond statuary bronze. Yeah, that would be all.
And then the darker metal, so the statuary bronze is the lighter metal and the,
Statuary
No,
bronze
that's
is the
the
one,
typical
that's the typical. The lighter
that's
is,
the regular one.
yeah, it's medium bronze.
Gonna take a picture. of
It's
all-
medium bronze, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then this is the West Tower material.
That's the same as last time.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is oyster. Yeah,
And this one is wood. If you want to
yeah,
picture
so the soffit,
soffit this or that.
yeah, so the light oak or the
You need-
dark nutty pine.
So shall we start talking first about Georgia Avenue and get feedback?
Sure.
Yeah, so
Go back to
if I could, so what's your preference and why?
starting with Georgia.
Let me go back.
Before, oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're okay with either of these. We would prefer the metal original one because,
Do you want to go back to that?
Got it?
yeah, can you go back to
Can
the,
you do a comparison by any chance? Just split screen?
yeah, can you open up another? This- This is on your desktop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is your mouse not?
No. I'll pull it. Yeah, opening. December.
You can do a.
Sorry about this.
So that's the,
These are the same one.
yeah.
But,
That's the same one.
sorry, your computer's set up.
Maybe you just flip back and forth.
yeah,
Why don't
we
you
can
just
flip back and
Why don't
forth.
you go back to
We'll go
the,
back. So maybe that's.
Yeah, so as we were saying, so the
can you guys revert back just to the full screen and maybe we just flip back and forth?
go to view.
It's worth a try.
Yeah, so
Did you want to go back to, is that the, go back to the metal one?
Yeah, so this is the metal.
Okay.
So
go to the metal one, which is the entire 3-bay coming down, and then the other one we have the same as the brick from Cameron.
I mean, again, if I could just ask clarifying questions, because I can't read your drawings.
Yep.
So go to one of them.
All right, so this is the
Why
brick
don't you
one.
go back to the metal one? That's the one.
Yeah, I think the metal one's the one you prefer. All right.
Yeah.
So is there a plane change between the tower and the bottom part?
On the third, yes.
A point
Yeah, on the third bay, first from the left.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is in a different plane than this.
Yeah.
yes, correct.
This is in the same plane as that.
Yep,
That's a recess?
a small
At the
recess.
Recess?
Yeah.
Is that, am I reading it right?
Yes,
So these glass are in the same plane as the metal? And this glass is set back from the metal grid. Am I reading that correctly?
Yep.
That's true. Is this in the same plane as that?
the metal bands,
Same.
yeah, all the metal
Same
grid is the
plane.
same.
Okay,
Yeah,
and then what about this?
that's a little bit recessed. Or that metal band is in the same plane as the crash wall window.
This and this are in the same plane, that's in the same plane as that. Is that
No,
correct?
no, those are
No,
pushed back.
recessed.
Everything inside the metal frames is pushed back. The main metal frame.
That's pushed back and it's in, essentially in the same plane as this band.
Yes.
Yeah, so we just feel architecturally, this is cleaner because it's just the same 3 bands come all the way down to the ground. On the other scheme, the brick one, you go to the elevation view of that. As the frames and the panels above have a different relationship than just it coming all the way to the ground. And they, because of the width we're working with here, they can't all be the same size frames in this brick piece. So it's workable, it's fine. It's just not as clean as the metal.
Did you look at taking the brick all the way down to the ground as you did on the Cameron facade around towards the residential entrance and at the egress entrance, or was that not feasible either with the ground floor?
Yeah, we looked at it. It makes it so it's a lot less clear glass at the ground floor.
Yeah.
And it has a different relationship with the brick around the corner from this. So it didn't make a lot of sense because the brick comes to the ground on Cameron Street, touching the brick, and here it would be touching the glass, and it was just a different relationship, which we don't have anywhere.
I got it. That makes sense. Can you go to the angle view, when you're sort of across the street from the 45?
Yeah, so go back.
I'm
One
looking
more back.
across Georgia.
That's with the brick.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that what's happening on Cameron, kind of like bookending here. And if we look at the other one, which is this here.
I have to say, just if I can wait, I don't know if what others think, but my initial reaction, I appreciate the sort of simplicity of the dark metal facade with the 3 bays, because that was the rhythm that you were looking at on the Georgia Avenue. But when you look at it from this perspective and sort of think about, and also the night views of these 2 corners, when you add the addition of the brick facade, I sort of am inclined to that one, because if you go to the brick version as well, and it's like even the front elevation at night of the brick one, it just feels a little bit lighter on Georgia Avenue, and it aligns nicely with the datum of the adjacent building, and the I feel like it helps the building massing read and how it grounds, and it really emphasizes that corner in a very nice way, because above that datum with the brick, you have a step back in the towers that sort of make it not as clear in the massing move. And so this sort of helps clarify that corner as a really important piece and grounds that sort of 300 feet of verticality. So I lean a little bit more towards this one, and I thank you for taking the time to illustrate it for us. And I think there's something nice about having that brick facade on Georgia Avenue. So you see that sort of, it lightens it up a little bit, because that metal feels pretty dark and the recesses are deep. And I think part of it's the rendering, but on the metal facade, it feels just very dark and, again, sort of looming above the pedestrian realm. But I'd be interested to hear what the other panelists think about the 2 options, because I could be swayed.
Can I just jump in without expressing a preference one way or the other? I think David keenly pointed out the planes of the facade between the metal panels in that scheme. I believe the brick would be the same condition. So you'd have a brick to metal panel facade without any relief or projection. You know, I think that should change. If it ends up going brick, my 2 cents, and I'm not an architect, I'll be the first one to say that in this whole room, is I don't think you want a plane of brick meeting a flat plane
the brick will
of
be
metal panels.
Comes out, right?
The brick is in front of the metal
Brick is
panel?
in front of it. Look at the angle, if you look at the angle view.
Yeah, so it's the same relationship as on, if you go to the corner.
But like the daytime one.
Yeah, if you go to the daytime
Go
one.
Go to the one back, so it's lighter. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the same relationship, what's happening on Cameron's side and that side, so.
Yeah.
What's the width of,
Metal plane.
like at the very end where it meets the Rise building, what's the width of that? bay, that last brick.
Oh, the last
that
bay?
piece of Brick. It
Um,
looks like it's pretty skinny, which
go back.
don't
I think it's like two,
The last one?
or go to the elevation. Or more for the brick one.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is a little under 2 feet. It's like
And my last question,
we can
what's
adjust it.
the total frontage of that building on Georgia Avenue from Verizon to our corner?
That is we have the dimension on the
We don't, but
I mean, to put it in context, it's not a lot of
Small, it's a
space.
narrow-
That's all, like, when we talk
Mhm.
about corners relative to other buildings, like corners coming down is probably closer to the whole width of our building than it is the true corner here. So, I think we've studied it, I will turn back over to the DAP members, but
It seems to me you have to decide, and this is what I was trying to get at when I asked you why. So you have to decide what your privileged position is. And it seems to me that one could take the position that the corner is the most important thing. And I want to emphasize the corner. And if you take that position, then the brick option on Georgia emphasizes the corner without a doubt. And then you show it very clearly in your drawings, if you'd be so kind to go to that. When the brick exists on both sides, the corner stands out and it's framed by that. And that says to me, the corner is the most important thing about my building. And that's what I'm going to emphasize. If you go to the metal one that you're suggesting, I think there's incredible amounts of ambiguity. Because, as was pointed out by your colleague, the facade isn't that long on Georgia Avenue. And so as soon as you make something special out of the bay where the corner is, then you got this other relationship for the remainder of the facade along Georgia Avenue. And it's not, it's ambiguous because it's almost the same size as the corner. And so it leaves you unsure of what's going on and what the purpose of the whole design was. And it just seems ambiguous is the best word I can come up with. And so from my perspective, if your purpose is to emphasize the corner, and it seems like you're spending a lot of money on the corner, you're doing special things to the elevator, you're trying to light it special, you're treating the glass differently, then it seems to me you want to not make another special thing. And so to me, I would agree with Alice that when the brick is shown, it frames the corner nicely, and that's the preferred scheme. Now, when I look at the brick scheme that you've drawn up, there's some odd things, and I suspect they're architectural and you can't resolve them, but the bays aren't the same.
Like you said.
No, I understand the third bay is smaller, but the other two aren't the same, or your drawing's wrong. I don't know.
They're
If you go to the facade,
Elevation.
if you go to the elevation, yeah. So
Oh,
I-
where are your vertical elements?
yeah, it's to align with the grid above. So there's
yeah.
some things we could work out.
is that the same as that?
Yes.
those two are the same.
It's just
And then
the,
it just seems odd that this is, I don't know.
those are
It doesn't change my opinion. I don't really care that much. I just think if you're going to emphasize the corner, you want to make those two, you want to frame the corner, and that makes the better option. I'm not going to nitpick the design.
I mean, what are you saying? Yeah, the very right one, the middle line that may repeat the same as the middle. So the thin piece. And what's happening, because it's also relating to the upper one, so the last two are similar, but you end up with the small pieces at the end, which is logical place to be.
So I would just suggest to you, without further study, that because the left-hand side of the tower is not in the same plane as the brick, it's going to be more difficult to make alignments between how that facade is developed and then how this brick facade is developed. Because first of all, the brick makes a clear disassociation between the two.
Yep.
And then on top of it, you have a plane change. And so making continuous lines up and down is difficult to do. And I'm not sure it would play out in the reality of the building.
Yeah.
But again, you're the experts, so you decide. But all I'm trying to say is, if you're spending all the money on the corner, and the corner is the most important thing, frame it with the glass. I think it shows it clearly. The other one seems more ambiguous to me.
Other, Raj, Shajoy, you guys have anything to add on this? Or we move to the next topic?
For me, again, I can't say I'm not an architect, even though I am trained. I don't practice for a reason. I like the change of materials and that playfulness that brings a little bit with the scheme A. I like the dark metal, and then it goes to glass, then you turn around and you have a brick, and then so I kind of thought I liked it, but considering David and Alice are practicing architects, if they feel strongly about that, I will go along with that. But again, I like this. I like
There's actually a
I
side.
like the playfulness that this brings with the glass, the lighting, and then the contrast between the horizons, drab, brick. So, yeah, my 2 cents.
Tara, if it's helpful, we do have Liz put in the chat side by side, if people are just making their final. You can access it on your
I
side.
can. The meeting. On my team.
Yeah, we can see the side by side.
You can see by the side, okay, terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm not, anybody else? Anything to add?
I agree with Praj. This is Chow Joy. I think the improvement is here, and the color changes just make it look a little bit less heavy. I would also defer to the architects here to make the final decision. So I think overall, we are heading the right direction.
So I think we've had a good discussion on the Georgia Avenue. What about the first floor of Georgia Avenue? What's happening there? Could you guys explain that a little bit more? I mean, is that just going to be clear glass into whatever the retail establishment is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there would be a relationship
Yes.
between the two?
So the corner is clear glass, and also the entire first floor retail is clear glass. So you
There's on that corner, there's clear glass, and then there's some sort of a screen around the elevator side of
We
that.
talked about this. I know you're here. There's like an elevator.
actually, the element you see, that is the wall of the elevator. So it is,
Okay.
yes,
And then to the left,
that's the retail.
and that would be just clear glass.
Clear glass, as you can
Some
people.
interaction visually at least.
Yeah. So you see here through the retail, like, we have rendered people walking, shopping, so that you can see.
And then that wall that, what is it, about 5 feet? Ends up being about 5 feet to get up to the glass at the ground?
At the very,
Yeah, because the grade is pretty steep.
Here, as you can see, it drops about 5 feet, and that's probably maximum we have stone.
Over at the corner.
Spaces.
The great stone.
On the Georgia side, it's really low, and then it starts to slow down. That is the maximum solid space.
So, Tara, just kind of in time wise, I know we're kind of getting now to the last half hour, can you just guys give us direction on which scheme you all want, the DAP wants?
I think everyone, it seems to me like this discussion is leaning in favor of this one. And I would say I think that this is also consistent with some of the guides and design guidelines about you're going to bring the power all the way down to do something that really emphasizes that corner. And I think that to Alice's and David's points, the way this building is sited, that corner view is actually a view that you will get quite a bit. Coming down Georgia Avenue, sometimes the corner view is not a view you see of a building very much, but in this particular location, that is a view shed that a lot of people have, and so I think it is a pretty significant view, and I think that's the direction I took from this conversation. So,
All right.
over to the next part of the conversation. Thank you guys for bringing it up. So let's move to talk about the garage facade.
So I don't know whether, Jan, if there's anything you wanted to say about this in terms of the relationship with.
I mean, I said it last time, the HPC weighed in on this in part because, their objective is to sort of have the little tiny diner be a jewel box that stands proud of everything else, both physically and visually. And the HPC collectively sort of supported a darker background because the lighter enamel panels of the diner car would read brighter up against that. So that was their position and what they voiced their support for. So I'm here to represent them and their position, and I can answer sort of any more background questions you have about that.
So, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so I do have a question. Just looking at this graphic, you have glass in the background of the car. How is that dark background? I don't understand the relationship between the dark panels that are in the garage facade, which are above, like almost a floor above the diner car. The diner car's background is glass and pretty light. So I don't understand that comment at all unless I'm missing something.
No, I mean, yeah, it is glazed all the way down, but I think that a lot of that is actually, I think half of the height is obscured by the diner car. So you have, yes, the glass is light and transparent, but you do have the solid diner car in front of that. So that's going to block approximately half of the glazing from the perspective that you see in slide 16 in front of you.
I would think the reading of the glass on the lower floors would be dark during the day and bright at night. And that's just the nature of how interiors read. And there's not going to be a lot of sunlight on the back solid wall. And so that's going to be in dark, even though you may have some interior lights. Those lights aren't going to be as bright as the sun. And so it's going to read dark. So I think, Praj, you maybe the renderings aren't as clean as they could be in terms of displaying the glass situation. I think it will read dark. My own preference is that when I hear the word lightness, I'm thinking of the mass and not color. And so the articulation of the parts helps make the parking garage above the diner seem lighter, rather than if it was more smooth and continuous, which could make it have greater mass, visual mass. In terms of the two options of the panels that you provide, I'm okay with either one. My inclination, without taking it outside and looking at more components, my inclination would be to make it the same as the rest.
Yes.
But perhaps if you do a mock-up or something like that, you might be able to tell whether the slightly lighter metal adds to the articulation of the pieces and makes it appear visually light. But that's something I don't think I can make a comment on, and frankly, I would leave it up to you. My blush would be keep it the same, just because then that adds continuity. But it could be that the lighter tone works better. Myself, you've tried to articulate the parts. I think that adds some lightness. And I think when you walk down the sidewalk and you have a view of walking down the sidewalk and you see the lightness of the soffit, I think that helps a lot in terms of taking away the heaviness of what's above, because it again begins to articulate parts. So to the extent that that soffit is not in the same plane as anything else that's on that facade, and there's a reveal, a difference, that articulation of the parts will make it seem visually lighter.
Yeah, I think the soffit color itself, also the treatment of the glass system itself, where your structures goes inboard and you only see silicon joints on the glazing, that will lighten that feeling up while walking.
My concern in the past has been that the predominance of the horizontal on the panels on the garage almost overwhelm and make the diner look even smaller than it is. And so, I was, I guess, more in favor of a contrast, of having the vertical contrasting to the horizontal of the diner to make it pop a little bit more. I think you've come a long way, actually, in sort of having the vertical expressed in this sort of large panel. And so I think it's a lot better. And so the color, I think, I wasn't as concerned with the color as I was with the fenestration. And I think the fenestration is much better now with the vertical elements.
And David's point, yeah, we will, when it's a major component, we will have some mock-ups down the road during construction to see exactly what it presents.
So
I can, go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Alice.
Go ahead.
Oh, I wasn't sure. I'll go ahead and jump in. A couple of things. I do agree. I think this facade has come a long way. I went back through and looked at all the different, elevations that were submitted through the various applications. And I do think, the verticals are more prominent, as Paul was saying, and it feels better. I think the soffit is definitely improvement, and will lighten up that space and be sort of reflective down there when you're under the mass. I will say, in terms of the color, I think you should go with the color that is matching everything else, because the lighter color is not really a medium bronze is not really a light color. You could have applied the light white tower color above, and I think that might have had an impact. But if it's such a minimal change, the difference between those two bronzes is minimal. So I don't think the color makes any difference. And I would stick with being consistent along the base, and not try to introduce a new color. If you wanted to go light, I would go light, and then you would be, I know you're in a tough spot because of the HPC comments, but you could have taken the really, if you go to the other view, you can see the light metal tower that's right above this base is a color that's in the composition of the building, and you could have done something like that. But I would not do like sort of a slight version off of the bronze, because that just introduces another piece to the palette. But I think overall, like, that's not going to hold me back from approving this project in any way. But I just did want to clarify that in terms of the color selection provided. So thank you for all the work that you've done to get this to where it is. And I know it's a really challenging project to deal with that, challenging solution to deal with that diner there on the corner, and how you do something that can tie in, respect it, and sort of celebrate it. So I think it's come a long way.
Once we did have much lighter color, and then, we presented, and with HPC, we came to this. So at one point, we did have color that matches the lighter tower, but and then we came to this. So I think what you said, that's what it is the coherence of the architecture with that color makes sense.
Yeah, and frankly, that's why I asked the question about the background, because I remember you guys doing something lighter on top, and this comment being the background color needs to be darker. And my whole point was the background is a glass, which David, I understand your point about it being darker, but I still don't understand how that's related to the panels that's being used a floor above that diner car. It's not a background, it's hanging over the diner car. So that's why I still don't understand that comment. And again, it's not a hill I want to climb whatsoever. So I agree. I really appreciate this soffit. I think because in my head, my initial comment was pretty much the pedestrian access. That's what that comment came from. I have been a pedestrian on this road, so I was just kind of thinking about, that. And I think the soffit helps. I think the landscape around it just like lightens it up. I think it's come a long way, and I do agree with Alice and David about just keeping the same metal color as is, because it just doesn't do it. It's not a contrast. It's just one shade lighter and makes no. I don't think it matters. So yeah, I would keep up with those three materials that you do have going in the building to keep it cohesive.
Joy, do you want to add anything before we move to wrap up?
I apologize. I've been coughing the whole time. No, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, so I think today we're just we've already gotten clarity on the Georgia Avenue. And it sounds like everybody is okay with sticking with the original color. I do think the soffit treatment, which might have been your original plan always, but it wasn't in the rendering. So seeing it helps to give us the sense of what it would be like in real life. I think that helps a lot. And I appreciate that you guys add that. And I'll just say, I appreciate that you ended up modeling the context, not so much on the townhouse side, but the Verizon building was really helpful. And I'm like sort of sorry that we didn't all think to ask, like just model the Verizon building front so we can see that. But that actually really helped with the discussion on Georgia Avenue. So I think that was a great on your part, and we didn't, something we hadn't asked, but very helpful for this particular, for these particular. Okay, so I think then we've kind of resolved this. I know we talked a little bit about the options for everyone said transparent corner. You guys can decide what to do with your light stuff when you move ahead, as long as it's going to be transparent. We've already covered that last time, just in case there was any questions. So I think now we're just going to vote that this project has met the goals of design excellence that we've been talking about this whole time. And the DAT members just have to vote yes or no to move the project ahead and let them move ahead on schedule with their site plan appearance at the board. Atul, go ahead.
Just a quick clarification, because eventually I think we're going to review the site plan here. Is the DAP voting to recommend the brick treatment along Georgia as was shown today, or okay, thanks.
Yeah, recommending the brick treatment and recommending to stay with the original panel color that's consistent with the palette of the building.
And the applicant can pursue either option B or C with the transparent.
Yeah, well, I think we said
corner.
Transparent glass was the priority for the DAP, and whatever they decide to do with the lights, that can be their interior design decision when they get farther along in the design. So those were sort of, I think, the conclusions from last time and today. And we really appreciate you guys pushing these two things. I think the Georgia Avenue options in particular were really helpful, and I feel like we got to a good place with that. So David, since you're the one person, we'll give you the honor of voting first.
I vote to approve.
Alice?
I second the approval.
Raj? Shaljoy?
Yes, I vote to approve, but I also just want to add thank you so much for bringing us these options. I know we didn't make it as easy maybe, but I really do appreciate all the effort. So yes, I approve.
I second, approve too.
Okay, great. With that,
Finally
we're
get
done.
Bill back now.
Yeah. At our next one, and thank you guys for pushing for this. I know it was a short timeline from the last discussion, but I really think the Georgia Avenue discussion really was like, that was a new thing, I think that we hadn't seen yet, and really helpful, obviously, for the DAP, and I think a good decision. Really.
Thank you all.
Good job.
So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye,
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
As if we have